Black CEO exposed the truth after being mocked. Discover the incredible 7.8B transformation. Marcus Thompson stood at the precipice of his destiny, fists clenched and heart racing. At just 30 years old, he had become the youngest Black CEO of a once floundering manufacturing company, a title that sparked both admiration and skepticism. It felt like the weight of the world pressed down on him, a weight forged from the struggles of his Detroit neighborhood. He could almost hear the whispers trailing behind him, taunting him, questioning his every move. What does this kid know? They'd say. But Marcus was determined. He remembered his roots, the grit passed down from his dad, a mechanic, and his mom, a dedicated nurse. They carved out a life against the odds, and he intended to honor that legacy. When Marcus walked into the boardroom, it was like entering a lioness' den. The seasoned executives, gray hair and suits, eyed him with disdain. They tossed around belittling remarks, mocking his youthful enthusiasm like it was a toy he was too old to play with. Each jab felt personal. It was hard to dismiss the familiar stinging in his chest, the same feeling he had when the neighborhood kids would throw scornful glances at his worn-out shoes. But he shook it off. He had bigger battles to fight. His dream of uplifting his community depended on him staying the course. Yet, it only took one company event gone wildly wrong to unravel it all. The room had been charged with excitement as Marcus stood up to deliver his speech. But when the tech malfunctioned and chaos ensued, frustration boiled over. He lost his cool. "This is unacceptable," he blurted, his voice echoing in disbelief. The atmosphere shifted. Awkward silence took over, and whispers of doubt rippled through his team. It was a moment of weakness. He alienated those who looked to him for guidance. Soon after, the stakes rose sharply. A crucial project began to crumble, financial losses looming large. Dread seeped into his bones as talk of incompetence spread like wildfire. Every passing day felt darker, suffocating him with worry not about the money, but what it all meant for his family, who had always championed his dreams. Sitting across the dinner table, he saw the concern in their eyes, a reflection of his own turmoil that in desperation. Marcus turned to his grandfather, a retired factory worker whose hands had felt the weight of every struggle. "It's easy to get lost under pressure, son," his grandfather said, a calming presence in the storm. "But you've got the spirit of our people in you. Remember resilience." Those words revived Marcus's weary soul. He felt renewed strength pulsating through him, the fire of determination igniting anew. He knew he had to rise. Just then, a life-changing contract appeared, poised to pull the company from the brink of disaster, a staggering $7.8 billion deal. Marcus felt an electrifying mix of fear and hope. This was it. But with it came challenges that forced him to confront both external skeptics and his own self-doubt. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he prepared to announce the groundbreaking deal, every moment felt like a ticking clock, stress clawing at his insides. Would they see him not just as a kid, but as a true leader? With the community's gaze firmly fixed upon him, he stood on the brink of transformation. The atmosphere thickened, anticipation palpable, as he faced the crowd. Could he truly shatter the barriers formed by prejudice and doubt? The answer danced on the edge of his tongue. Would he rise, or would the shadows of his past pull him back into the abyss? Marcus inhaled deeply, steadying himself before stepping onto the stage. The crowd's murmured conversations enveloped him, doubts lingering like shadows. 100 faces stared back at him. Some, familiar faces from his community, radiated hope. Others, the skeptical suits who had belittled him, wore expressions of impatience. This was no ordinary presentation. It was a chance to redefine not just his company, but also his identity. As the lights dimmed, he could feel the weight of every life that hung in the balance with this deal. The families depending on his success loomed large in his mind. He recalled the nights spent in his childhood home, amid laughter and shared dreams. He felt their aspirations weaving into his resolve as he caught the gaze of his mother in the audience. The flicker of pride shown was his anchor. He took a step forward, scanning the room as he began. Today, we stand at a crossroads. His voice trembled but grew steadier with each word. As he spoke of resilience, innovation, and community, he poured the essence of his journey into those familiar phrases. The narrative of struggle intertwined with promise painted vivid images for those listening. He shared how the deal was more than just numbers. It was a lifeline for dozens of families striving for success, a chance to bridge hope and opportunity. Slowly, he felt the atmosphere shift. A light buzz of energy began to replace the lingering skepticism as he laid out how the contract would impact jobs, improve technology, and elevate those struggling in the community. Every statistic, every projection, he conveyed with the urgency of someone who had lived the reality of these struggles. He wasn't just advocating for a deal. He was championing a movement. But just as the crowd began to lean in, one executive, whom Marcus recognized as his most ardent doubter, stood up. The skepticism was palpable. "Do you really think you have what it takes to manage a project of this magnitude?" he called out, trying to undermine him in front of the very audience Marcus hoped to inspire. Marcus felt his heart race, the familiar sting of self-doubt creeping back in. But this time, something felt different. The words of his grandfather echoed in his mind, igniting a fire within him. He met the executive's gaze head-on. "I believe that vision isn't just about understanding the numbers. It's about connecting with people, lifting them up. I have come from a place where every penny matters and every dream counts." The boardroom fell silent. A moment of realization hung in the air. Maybe, just maybe, he had planted a seed of doubt in the executive's certainty. He pressed on, fueled by his rising conviction, weaving his own story of experience, heart, and the unwavering resilience he learned from his parents. As he finished his presentation, the applause that erupted was hesitant at first, but it quickly built to an undeniable crescendo. The room filled with a mix of emotions: hope, skepticism, and a dawning respect. Could it be possible they were finally listening? But just when it seemed Marcus had tipped the balance in his favor, a voice from the back spoke up. A young woman he had seen in the crowd raised her hand. "What do you plan to do if the contract goes south?" she asked, her voice tinged with genuine concern instead of skepticism. His heart sank at the prospect of failure, but then he felt the warmth of resolution wash over him. This was not just about a deal. It was about trust, integrity, and the promise he made to his community. How he answered that question could change everything. But he didn't have the answers just yet. He took a moment, the tension thick in the air. This was his chance to show he was more than a CEO. He was a man of the people, a testament to the fight against the odds. Marcus squared his shoulders, ready to answer, knowing this was only the beginning of a much larger journey ahead. Would he be able to reassure his community that he was in this for them? Or would his response send him spiraling back into doubt? Marcus felt the weight of the room pressing down on him as he considered the question. The spotlight, once a source of encouragement, now felt like a knife's edge. His eyes darted to the audience, capturing fleeting expressions of curiosity, skepticism, and hope. He had built a momentum, and he wasn't about to let it splinter with uncertainty. He took a deep breath, allowing silence to stretch just a moment longer. "If the contract goes south," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "then you will see not just a CEO in crisis, but a community fighting back together." This was a bold claim, but it was rooted in something deeper than bravado. He leaned into honesty, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "I understand that sometimes plans don't unfold as we hope. But what I can promise is that if challenges arise, I won't hide behind a desk or make excuses. I will be right there with you. We would tackle it as a community, every step of the way." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some were nodding, a flicker of respect kindling in their eyes. Others still lingered in uncertainty. His mother's unwavering gaze provided a sliver of comfort amid the swirling doubts. "Together," he continued, "we can find solutions. Whether it's backing new initiatives, seeking alternative partnerships, or even exploring innovative ways to support our community and our workforce. I won't abandon you. I'll fight for us." The fervor in his voice grew, emboldened by the truth resonating in his words. The young woman smiled, a flicker of relief illuminating her face. The tension eased slightly in the room. Maybe he wasn't just a face in a suit. Perhaps he truly was rooted in the very essence of the community he represented. But just as he felt the gathering energy shift again, that skeptical executive piped up once more. And what is stopping this community from being just another statistic? What evidence do you have that this isn't just a pipe dream? There was mockery lacing his tone, and it struck a nerve in Marcus. The doubt was suffocating, but it also ignited a fire in Marcus like never before. You know, every statistic starts as a story, and every story starts with someone who believed, he countered, believed in their potential, in each other. I can't promise success will be easy, but I can promise you this. We'll create a narrative together, one rooted in hard work, commitment, and accountability. He watched as the challenge echoed in the room, sensing the shift from skepticism to curiosity. This was a moment he could build on. Marcus looked around, catching the eyes of those in the audience again. Sometimes it's not about avoiding failure, he added earnestly, but how we respond to it. The real measure of success is in our resilience, our unity. As he spoke, the applause erupted again, stronger this time, filled with the belief that had been dormant for too long. He could feel it in his bones. He was on the edge of something that transcended mere numbers and contracts. It was about community, heart, and forging bonds that could withstand the test of time. Just then, the head of the board raised an eyebrow, signaling the crowd to settle. All right, Marcus, he began, his voice authoritative. You've caught our interest. So what's next? What specific steps will you take moving forward? A collective breath caught in Marcus's chest. This was at the next pivotal moment, the real test of his resolve and vision. Could he lay a foundation so solid it would turn hope into reality? The eyes staring at him filled his heart with anticipation. This was the beginning of the next chapter, and he felt the stirring of destiny within him once more. But in the clarity of his focus, there was also a twinge of fear. What if he didn't know the answers needed to shape this future? Would he be able to outline a roadmap that could truly guide them through the storm? Marcus stood in front of the boardroom, the walls teeming with expectation. With a steadying breath, he grasped the moment. Thank you for your question. My first step is to establish an open line of communication. This will ensure transparency and build trust within our community. The murmurs grew, heads nodding in cautious agreement. He could feel the pulse of the room change. This was a pivotal transition point. I believe we need to hold regular town halls, where every voice counts. I want to hear our employees. Their ideas matter. They are the heart of this organization, and together, we can brainstorm on initiatives that will uplift us all. He glanced at the skeptical executive, who had thrown down the gauntlet earlier. The man's brow furrowed, amusement mingling with curiosity. A shift in dynamics was underway, and Marcus felt the opportunity to create genuine connection. And next, Marcus continued, we must invest in our training programs. These aren't just investments in skills, they're investments in lives. By providing our employees with the tools they need, we're fostering growth from within. This is how we cultivate leaders who will drive us forward. The board members shifted in their seats, intrigued. Several visibly relaxed, their shoulders dropping as if shedding a burden. Marcus went on, additionally, we should actively seek partnerships with local businesses. We can build a cooperative ecosystem that supports one another. If we lift each other up, we elevate the whole community. He could sense the crowd leaning in closer, hooked by the vision unfolding before them. Lastly, I plan to establish a community fund, one that directly supports local initiatives, education, and healthcare services. This is not just about profit margins. It's about giving back and making a real difference. The flames of his passion ignited the room. There was hope igniting among them, a shared conviction that they could rewrite their story. Applause erupted again, this time with a fervor that resonated deep within Marcus. Their collective spirit was rising, lifting him alongside them, and in that moment, he felt invincible. Yet, he also recognized a haunting undercurrent. How do you keep that momentum going? What if it fizzled out before the first step was taken? Don't misunderstand, he added, his voice rising above the noise. This won't be easy. There will be setbacks and trials. But I promise to stand with you. His chest swelled with determination. If our community falters, I will take responsibility. We'll adapt together. We cannot shy away from failures, but learn from them. Only then will we truly grow. The applause reached a crescendo, an unmistakable signal that they felt something had shifted. He caught his mother's eyes, swelling with pride and shimmering with unshed tears. It was a moment he wanted to hold close, forever. But then the atmosphere shifted again as the head of the board leaned forward, his expression contemplative. "Marcus, that's a great vision, but how do we convince the investors? They need to see numbers, results. The clock is ticking." His heart sank. That question loomed in the air like a storm cloud. They needed investors back on board, and the pressure of their expectation weighed heavy on his shoulders. "Investors, yes, of course," he replied, his mind racing. "We will prepare a comprehensive strategic plan that showcases actionable steps and projected outcomes. We need to present our community-driven initiatives as part of a roadmap to growth." The board members were whispering among themselves, and Marcus could feel the tension in the air shift again. Doubt crept in, but he pushed it aside, focus on the now. He needed to capture the essence of this moment. Then, unexpectedly, a voice rang out from the back. "But what if they still want to listen? What if they don't believe in this vision at all?" The question hung in the air, a challenge echoing through the room. A sense of uncertainty danced in Marcus' chest, but rather than falter, it fueled him. "If they don't, we'll prove them wrong. We'll show them the strength of our unity, the power of change." He took a deep breath, locking eyes with the speaker. "This is about more than just numbers. It's about people, and we'll be the living evidence of what we can achieve together." The response was electric, a firing up of resolve among the crowd. But the weight of uncertainty still loomed large. Would the investors be swayed by their passion, or would they dismiss the heart behind it all? The stakes were rising, and with them, the urgency of the moment crackled through Marcus. "Now is the time for action," he shouted, the fervor visible in his every gesture. The board looked at him with renewed interest. But would that voice be enough to turn the tide? Marcus sensed the stakes had never been higher. The next chapter was teetering on a cliff, and only time would reveal whether they would take the leap together or fall back into the old ways. The room fell into a tense silence, each breath a collective pause, as if they were holding their hopes just out of reach. Marcus searched the faces around him, gauging their reactions, feeling a ripple of energy coursing through the air. The board members exchanged glances, a mix of skepticism and intrigue painting their expressions. Then, the head of the board cleared his throat. "What you're proposing is bold, Marcus. But words can only take us so far. We need tangible results to show our investors that this isn't just a pipe dream. What is the specific plan?" His words hit like a hammer. Marcus could feel his stomach fluttering. This moment would define everything. "Right?" he thought. "Let us break it down." "Okay, let us start with the town halls," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Throughout each month, we'll gather feedback and assess pressing community needs. The data collected will guide our initiatives. We can showcase this as a direct line to our employees and customers, proof of our commitment to community engagement." A few heads nodded, intrigued as he outlined a broader vision, breaking it down into measurable steps. "We'll also track the effectiveness of our training programs. I propose we set clear metrics: employee satisfaction, skill advancement, and retention rates. These numbers will showcase how investing in our people is simultaneously an investment in our bottom line." There were murmurs of agreement, and some executives began jotting down notes. Marcus felt a spark of optimism ignite. They were starting to see the potential, but it was still early. "And about the community fund," he continued, "let us allocate a percentage of our profits to this initiative. We can set milestones based on how many local projects we successfully support year over year. That will demonstrate our commitment to uplifting the community and provide a direct connection to our investors about our moral stance." Applause broke out again, although it was quieter this time, more confident. You could see people leaning in, engaged and interested. But the lingering question from before still clenched at Marcus's heart. What if the investors weren't pulled in by good intentions or community stories? Suddenly, as if sensing the remaining doubt in the room, the skeptical executive spoke up again. "It sounds good on paper, Marcus. But remind me, who exactly are we targeting for these partnerships? If they're not convinced, we risk losing even more." The air crackled with tension. This was the crux of their struggle. Connection and relatability could only go so far without the right strategy. "Right," Marcus replied, his brow furrowing. "Okay, we need to leverage our existing networks. Let us reach out to businesses we already work with, those who have expressed interest in community relations. I know people are eager for collaboration. The room buzzed with renewed momentum as plans began to take shape. Marcus could feel the fear slipping out, replaced by a dawning hope. Then an unexpected voice chimed in from the far side of the table, one he and T noticed before. A younger board member, perhaps a newer hire, spoke up. What if investors don't just need proof of profitability? What if they want to feel emotionally connected? Something we can present, something real. The suggestion hung like a light bulb igniting. You're right, Marcus said, his heart racing with excitement. We should share stories, employee testimonials, and community impact reports. We can frame the numbers with real emotions and narratives. They have to know it's real for us. They need to see real lives being transformed. He could feel the energy shift again, eyes brightening with fresh purpose. Marcus realized that this was the crux of it, the heart of their vision unlocking before him, bound by stories and emotions. This could be compelling enough to sway investors. It blended numbers and humanity. As discussions grew heated with vibrant ideas, undercurrents of camaraderie emerged. The storm clouds that had overshadowed this very meeting began to dissipate. But silently, Marcus still wrestled with his own lingering questions. What if investors still didn't come around? How would they face another disappointment if all these plans fell through? The pressure continued to build inside him, the stakes undefined and rising. Just as the chatter intensified with fresh perspectives, Marcus felt a shift in the air, like an unexpected gust that could change their fate. Would they be able to deliver this vision, or would they tumble back into the dark, unyielding past? As the meeting continued swelling with energy, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. But now, uncertainty transformed into possibility. He felt a spark of knowledge blazing in him. They could be the change. And then another voice rang out, a reminder of the reality still lurking just outside the room. How soon do we need to present this to investors? We can't delay if we want their backing. That urgency caught him by the throat. The clock was ticking, and they needed more than just plans. They needed a miracle. How far would he go to ensure that this time they wouldn't just speak of change, but create it? The next step loomed large ahead of him, and the path remained uncertain. Would they find the courage to leap forward? The atmosphere in the room felt electrifying, but questions still loomed like storm clouds. Marcus could sense the urgency mounting, a heavy feeling in his chest as the clock ticked away. The discussions from earlier fluttered around him like leaves caught in a breeze, each one a bit of hope, but the weight of time pressed down hard. All right, team, he said, gathering his thoughts. It's time for us to get serious. We need to hit the ground running and make this happen. Who can we bring in to help us draft a presentation? Who can take the lead on gathering those stories we discussed? As people began to voice their suggestions, a small spark of excitement sprang up within him. Still, the nagging voice in his head questioned everything. Were they ready? Could passion alone save them from failure? His gaze landed on the younger board member who had initially sparked the idea about emotional connections. What is your name? He paused, realizing he didn't even know her. Sarah, she replied hesitantly, her eyes wide, clearly taken aback by Marcus's intensity. Sarah, you're onto something important. I want you to lead the storytelling aspect. Connect with employees, collect their narratives. That's where the heart of our message lies. Sure, I can do that, she replied, visibly warming to the challenge. As they continued discussing potential deadlines and timelines, hope began to swell in the space between the walls. As the meeting progressed, Marcus felt a strange mix of exhilaration and dread. Each new idea shared felt like another brick laid on a fragile structure they were building. The reality was that this was just a draft. If they couldn't solidify this into something tangible before the investors arrived, all this would amount to nothing. Let us get our metrics in order, too, another board member said, stepping in. We need hard numbers to show how powerful this will be. That data will serve as our backbone against any skepticism. Yes, Marcus encouraged, riding the wave of motivation. They began divvying up responsibilities, figures flying across the table as if it were a game of catch. But then a grim thought seeped in. What happened if their ambitious dreams turned to ash? He had seen too many people believe in something, only to watch it collapse. Could they manage the expectations, the demands of their investors, and still deliver authenticity? Unfurling the blueprint of their community fund program, Marcus started explaining this to the group. As he spoke passionately about what true corporate social responsibility could look like, the local businesses supported, the lives changed. He saw faces lighting up around him. Ideas flowed freely, voices grew louder, and laughter bubbled to the surface. The discomfort from earlier transformed into a rhythm of collaboration. "Marcus, what if we do a live stream event?" Sarah suggested suddenly. "We can showcase employee stories, community members who benefited from our programs, and even involve investors. It'll be a real-time connection, a show of our commitment." The thought pulsated through Marcus like an electric current. "That's brilliant," he exclaimed, clapping his hands. "Let us get a plan nailed down for that. It could be the hook we need." Just as he leaned back, relishing the moment, his phone buzzed. The alert cut through the warmth of the discussion like a winter chill. A text flashed on the screen from one of the board's most powerful investors. "Looking forward to the presentation. Make it impactful or be ready for a shake-up." The room froze for a heartbeat, eyes darting to Marcus. Hope shifted to anxiety, the reality of the stakes sinking back in. "We can't just hope to please them, we need to blow them away." But how? And so the clock ticked closer to the edge of uncertainty, requiring more than their newfound momentum. Would it be enough? As the echoes of enthusiasm faded, Marcus felt a steely determination settle in his gut. This time, they needed more than a catchphrase. They needed a story so deep and powerful that the entire world felt it ripple. But, deep inside, a whisper nagged at him. Had they gone too far? Would they risk everything? Or could they turn dreams into something real? The path ahead was blurry. With every ticking second, the truth loomed like a shadow. Would they have the courage to unveil what lay beneath? The tension in the room lingered, thick and tangible, as Marcus stared down at his phone. The weight of the investor's words felt like a leaden anchor, pulling on the high spirits they had built just moments before. A quick glance around the table confirmed that his concerns echoed throughout the group. The faces that had been bright with enthusiasm now wore a veil of worry. "Okay," he said, trying to inject authority back into his voice. "Let us regroup. We have one shot, and I want all hands on deck. Sarah, what do we need from you?" "Well," she replied, a determined fire igniting behind her eyes. "I think we should get started on interviewing employees tonight. Gathering those stories is vital. We can't just present data without the real experiences behind it." "Absolutely," Marcus nodded, his confidence beginning to creep back in. "And what about metrics? We need compelling numbers to go along with those narratives. Jake, can you spearhead that?" Jake cleared his throat, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Sure. I can compile what we have and look for local businesses that we've supported. It'll show our impact clearly." "Great. I want everyone on point. Let us not leave any stone unturned," Marcus said, feeling the pulse of urgency quicken among his team. Ideas bounced around like fireworks now. Sarah was on her phone, reaching out to employees, while Jake dove headfirst into spreadsheets. Amidst the storm of activity, Marcus fought against the creeping doubts in his mind. This was no ordinary presentation. It was a representation of their vision, a chance to rally not just the investors, but the community. The potential felt heavy, almost suffocating. As evening began to fall, exhaustion nipped at the edges of his focus. He pushed through it, pouring coffee into his cup and mentally sorting through the tapes of others' concerns. Moments of personal failure teased at his subconscious. What if history repeated itself? Suddenly, Sarah burst into the room, a flurry of excitement at her heels. "I just spoke with Jenna from marketing. She has a great story that aligns perfectly with our mission, how company support helped her community thrive." Plus, she hesitated, her hesitation hinting at something bigger. She's willing to share it live. "That's huge," Marcus exclaimed. "We can make that the centerpiece of the live stream. A real face to the mission." As adrenaline surged, they all motivated each other, exchanging ideas more freely. The more stories they gathered, the more flashes of hope ignited around the table. The combination of personal narratives and potent data seemed to take shape like a sculptor chiseling a masterpiece from stone. Then worry flickered back in Marcus's mind. But what if we hit a wall? What if the data doesn't add up, or the stories don't resonate? A moment of silence met his thoughts. Sarah leaned in, her voice steady and calm. "Marcus, we can't control how they respond, but we can be authentic. That's what matters most. The truth will resonate. Her words hung there, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. He nodded slowly, feeling a flicker of hope. With a united sense of purpose, they continued working late into the evening, the tension beginning to morph into trust. But amid the chaos and laughter, as Marcus glanced at the clock counting down the hours, a touch of dread nestled deeper within him. He knew the stakes were higher than they seemed. What if they didn't get it all together in time? What if the investors saw through the facade of emotion? As they gathered their findings and crafted a skeleton of the presentation, an unexpected message chimed on Marcus's phone, drawing all eyes to the glowing screen. It was a new alert, this time from a journalist with a history of digging deep. Marcus, heard whispers of your upcoming presentation. Care to share a sneak peek? He felt the ground shift beneath him at the implication. This wasn't just about presenting to investors anymore. It was now public. The challenge ahead had multiplied. Could they maintain the delicate balance between impact and authenticity under such scrutiny? The moment felt like a tightrope stretching over an abyss, and he wasn't sure if they would remain standing. With tension heading back toward critical, Marcus felt the clock ticking louder than ever. What fresh challenges awaited them as they approached the very edge of unveiling their truth? The quiet buzz of the room shifted as a heaviness filled the air once more. Marcus blinked, grappling with the gravity of the journalist's message. It was more than just a note. It was a declaration that their work was being watched. They had been preparing to unveil their vision to investors, but now, it felt like they were throwing themselves into the public arena. The stakes seemed impossibly high. Guys, we need to incorporate the press angle into our strategy, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. We can't treat this as just an internal presentation anymore. How we come off on social media could change everything. Jake furrowed his brows, his fingers pausing over the keyboard. Right, so more storytelling? We have to craft a narrative that resonates with not just our investors, but also the wider community. Exactly. Sarah's enthusiasm didn't falter. In fact, it felt contagious. Let us embrace this. We have a chance to show what we stand for. A powerful story can amplify our message. Marcus looked around, seeing the spark rekindle in their eyes. They had a challenge ahead, but unity had always been their strength. Let us structure our presentation to appeal both emotionally and factually. Focus on those personal stories and the metrics that back them up, but don't forget to hint at this larger narrative of transformation. As they resumed their work, the mix of anxiety and excitement buzzed in the room. Sarah crafted her interview questions to evoke personal connections. Jake dug into the numbers, seeking trends that highlighted their community impact. Each member of the team navigated their tasks, hearts racing with purpose. They worked late into the night, fueled by coffee and determination. But even amidst the rising tide of productivity, Marcus felt his heart begin to flutter at the thought of the looming deadline. The hours felt both too short and endless. Wait, Marcus paused as a thought struck him. What if we used social media to gather support before the presentation? We could create a call to action that encourages people to share their stories. Jake looked up, eyes brightening. That could work. It would give us social proof and momentum. If we can show the investors the community rallying behind our cause. Sarah grinned. It would be an emotional wave of support. We could ask people for video clips telling how our mission has influenced their lives. This could turn into a grassroots campaign. As they brainstormed ways to harness community stories, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope blossom within him. Yes, this was risky. Yes, there were whispers of doubt in his mind. But they were shaping a movement, not just a presentation. Then, just as the energy surged, Marcus's phone buzzed again, interrupting them. A direct message from the journalist popped up, this time asking for a comment on their initiative. Ugh, it doesn't stop, he muttered under his breath, running a hand through his hair. Just tell him we are keen to share our journeys soon, Sarah suggested gently, sensing his frustration. Leaving him guessing can create more buzz. He nodded, taking a breath. Okay, I'll do it. The feeling of urgency thrummed in every heartbeat as Marcus began to compose a response, thoughts tumbling over themselves. Would they really be able to pull this off? Would their efforts resonate beyond the walls of the conference room and ripple through the community? As he clicked send, hope wrestled with doubt once more, tightening his chest. The room fell silent as everyone waited, each breath held in anticipation. What if this doesn't go as planned? Marcus finally voiced, his voice shaking with vulnerability. Then we show up as our authentic selves, Sarah said, her confidence bolstering his frail heart. That's the best we can do. But as stillness hung in the air, an undeniable realization gripped Marcus. When the time came, it wouldn't just be about numbers or stories, it would be about revealing their truth. Scarcely a heartbeat later, a new notification rang from his phone, more urgent than before. Marcus, the community is asking for you to speak. When's the event? Suddenly, all eyes fell on him, the weight of expectations heavier than ever. Would he stand up for their dream, or would fear silence his voice? As adrenaline surged and doubt lingered, the impending moment approached. Would he have the courage to stand tall when it truly mattered? Marcus's heart raced as he processed the question. The weight of the community's expectations settled heavily on his shoulders. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, trying to summon a confident answer. The anticipation in the room was palpable, each member waiting for him to set the stage. I guess I can prepare something for tomorrow, maybe even live stream. He tried to hide the tremor in his voice, but Sarah's eyes widened with excitement. Yes, a live Q&A could create real connection. People love knowing they can engage directly. It's authentic, she replied, her voice brightening the somber atmosphere. But what if I stumble? Marcus asked. Doubt crept back in, tightening around his resolve like a vice. The moment felt monumental, but what if he failed to convey their mission as powerfully as he wanted? Think about what we're fighting for, Marcus, Jake interjected, leaning forward earnestly. People want to hear from you. When they see your passion, that LL resonate. Speak from your heart. You can do this. The words struck a chord within him. He thought of the countless late nights they had spent dreaming of change, the faces of the people they hoped to uplift, and the stories that connected them all. With a deep breath, he nodded. Okay, you're right. I'll do it, he said, his voice strengthening. A wave of warmth surged through him, pushing away the worry. Let us rally everyone, Sarah said, her exuberance contagious. We can share a countdown on social media, encourage people to submit questions beforehand. Get everyone buzzing. As they outlined their plan for the live event, an energy pulsed in the room. Laughter broke out as they joked about the quirks of live broadcasting, and ideas flowed freely. But, even amidst the enthusiasm, Marcus couldn't shake a gnawing anxiety that returned like an uninvited guest. Later that night, Marcus lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced with a dozen thoughts. What if no one showed up? Or worse, what if he misrepresented everything they worked for? He tossed and turned, uncertainty swirling in his stomach. Just as he was about to drift off, a notification pinged on his phone. It was a comment on their recent post about the live event. I'll be there to support you. Your mission matters. A smile crept onto his face. There it was, the connection. For every anxiety-drenched worry, there were voices ready to cheer him on, voices that believed in their cause. The next day, the air felt electric. In their workspace, anticipation buzzed like a live wire. Marcus looked at his team, grateful for their unwavering support. He could see it in their eyes, the belief that they were on the brink of something extraordinary. He adjusted his mic and logged into the stream. The chat flooded with names, hearts, and encouraging messages. A wave of emotion swept over him, nearly overwhelming. As he caught a glimpse of his reflection on the screen, he took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. All right, it's time, he whispered to himself. Feeling the moment's weight, but also its power, he began to speak, heart racing but voice steady, pouring out their story, the struggles, the dreams, the plans for change. But just as things were gaining momentum, an unexpected comment popped up, causing him to falter. Why should we trust you? You said change is coming, but how do we know you're truly different? A crack of uncertainty crept in, and for a split second, Marcus felt his breath hitch. The room around him faded as doubt clawed its way up from the pit of his stomach. But just as swiftly, he remembered their truth, the stories of real people whose lives could shift. Because that's how we're built, he responded, emotion fueling his words. We're here to listen, to grow, and to transform together. Change isn't just a promise, it's a movement, and I believe in it as much as I believe in this team. Suddenly, the power of the moment surged again, igniting the room. The comments rolled in, voices joining in agreement, clapping back at doubt, and rallying behind the dream they all shared. Marcus realized this wasn't just his fight. It was theirs. As he spoke, pouring everything into that moment, a new notification pinged on his phone. His heart sank at the thought of more negativity, but then he noticed something, a retweet from the journalist, that made his stomach drop. Caught live. We'll be discussing this movement in my column. Thoughts. The urgency exploded like fireworks, both thrilling and terrifying. Would this open doors, or would it bring an onslaught of scrutiny? With his heart pounding, Marcus turned back to the camera, ready for whatever came next, each heartbeat fueling his determination. He wasn't sure exactly what lay ahead, but one thing was clear: this was just the beginning of their journey, and the stakes were higher than ever. How would they navigate this new wave of pressure? The room buzzed with anticipation as the day of the presentation arrived. Marcus stood in front of the large conference room window, sunlight spilling in, casting warm rays across the polished table. His team clustered around, their nervous energy electrifying the space. Today wasn't just a presentation, it was a chance to redefine everything that stood before them. He glanced at the faces of his colleagues. They had fought alongside him, weathering storms of self-doubt and external skepticism. It hit him then. They weren't just a team, they were a family. Okay, everyone, Marcus began, his voice steady but warm. Today, we're not here just to pitch a deal. We're here to unveil a vision. He could see the excitement growing among them, but there were echoes of fear too. A quick breath. Then he continued, let us remind ourselves why we're doing this. Nods of agreement rippled through the group. One by one, his colleagues shared personal stories of how the mission had impacted their lives, the struggles they had seen, and the dreams combined they hoped to achieve together. As they built their narrative, a shared spirit of determination filled the air like an invisible chorus chanting, "We can do this." When it was time for Marcus to take the stage, his heart raced. He stepped up, eyes scanning the room. The board members, once skeptical, now wore expressions of curiosity, even hope. He took a deep breath and began, weaving their stories into a heartfelt tapestry. Our journey is one of resilience, he declared, voice ringing clear. He spoke passionately about the community they wished to uplift, each word resonating like a promise of a future where opportunities blossomed and struggles began to dissolve. As he drew on the heartfelt stories woven into their strategy, he felt a wave of empowerment surging through him. Suddenly, the back of the room shifted. The skeptical executive raised his hand again. Holding the collective breath of everyone around him, Marcus turned to him, ready to face another challenge. You've got emotion, Marcus, but what are the numbers? Can this all stand up to scrutiny? Marcus felt a moment of vulnerability wash over him. The old trepidation clawed at his insides, but he pushed through. I understand. But every statistic is a human story. We measure not numbers alone but lives transformed, he replied, passion fueling his words. The numbers will follow when lives change. A sound rippled through the room. Was that applause? Uncertainty hung in the air, but a flicker of respect flickered in his direction. Then, to his surprise, several executives nodded, some even smiling. Let us look at our proposal as not just a project, but a promise, a chance to weave a stronger fabric of community around us, he added, igniting determination in the hearts of his audience. Invest in us, and we will invest back. It's time to rise together. As he wrapped up, the applause filled the room, echoing both reverence and excitement. The energy was palpable. For the first time that day, Marcus dared to believe they were reaching the finishing line of this marathon. Moments later, the head of the board stood, facing the gathering. All right, Marcus, he acknowledged, you've presented a compelling case. What's the next step? A wave of exhilaration surged through Marcus. The moment of realization struck. This was the culmination of not just weeks or months of hard work, but of a lifetime's journey. Next, we prepare for our community fund launch, he announced, heart racing. We'll begin our outreach immediately. Each connection we've made here today will ripple into our streets. We will show the world what a collective effort can achieve. Cheers erupted in the room, confirming that the energy had shifted to one of unity and belief. As the meeting drew to a close, the executives exchanged glances of expectation, and Marcus caught the look in his mother's eyes, filled with pride. He knew in that moment that his community would rise anew, and together, they could shatter the constraints that had held them back for far too long. For Marcus, the Transformation had begun not merely of numbers turning into profits, but of a community embracing ascension together. He was not just a kid from Detroit anymore. He was a bridge, connecting dreams, nurturing potential, and uplifting spirits. They stepped out of the conference room into the world beyond, their voices ringing clear, hope and determination, side by side, ready to carve a future worth fighting for. This was the moment, a narrative no longer unwritten. It was real, it was theirs, and it was just the beginning. Now, I want you to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support really makes a difference. Comment below and share your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And lastly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second to share this. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.